Two astronauts who were initially scheduled for an 8-day mission aboard the International Space Station, ISS, might now be delayed until next year due to safety issues related to Boeing. Elon Musk may soon disclose details that could worsen Boeing's already fragile position. Currently, NASA has postponed the astronauts' return, citing safety concerns with Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. Astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, originally scheduled to return in February, will now be brought back aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon instead. This change highlights the growing distinction between SpaceX's expanding dominance and Boeing's difficulties within the space industry. The drama unfolded after Elon Musk posted a tweet in August 2024 that seemed to mock Boeing's setbacks. Musk's tweet, which suggested that aircraft manufacturers like car companies would dominate the space industry, appeared aimed at Boeing. Despite being a major player in aerospace, Boeing has faced persistent challenges in its space endeavors. His comment came after NASA's decision to avoid using Boeing's Starliner due to issues encountered during a June 2024 docking attempt at the ISS. What was intended to be a routine mission turned into a potential crisis when NASA feared the astronauts would be stranded without SpaceX's assistance. Musk pointed out that without SpaceX, NASA might have had to rely on Russia to return the astronauts, which would have been a major setback for U.S. space independence. This incident is the latest in a series of troubles for Boeing's Starliner program. A decade ago, NASA awarded contracts to both Boeing and SpaceX to transport astronauts to the ISS, with the goal of reducing dependence on Russian spacecraft. Boeing received $4.2 billion for the CST-100 Starliner, which was expected to outperform SpaceX's spacecraft, which was awarded $2.6 billion. However, since 2020, SpaceX has successfully launched 7 crewed missions, while Boeing has yet to complete a safe crewed mission. The Starliner has faced numerous technical and safety issues, raising doubts about its future, especially as SpaceX continues to provide reliable service. As the astronauts await their return, this incident raises broader questions about the sustainability of Boeing's role in space exploration. Boeing has yet to conduct a successful crewed flight with the Starliner and has exceeded its budget by $1.5 billion. Now, let's take a moment to discuss the ISS. This space laboratory, which orbits Earth, is a product of collaboration between 5 major space agencies: NASA, Roscosmos, ESA, JAXA, and CSA. It stands as the largest human-made structure in space and functions as a versatile science laboratory where astronauts conduct experiments in microgravity and study the space environment. Boeing envisioned the Starliner as the ideal spacecraft to transport astronauts to and from the ISS. The Starliner consists of reusable crew capsules and disposable service modules. While it is larger than SpaceX's Crew Dragon, it is smaller than NASA's Orion capsule and can carry up to 7 astronauts, though NASA limits flights to 4 at a time. The Starliner can stay docked at the ISS for up to 7 months and launches aboard an Atlas 522 rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida. However, the Starliner's journey has been plagued with challenges, from software bugs to parachute issues. Boeing has faced numerous setbacks, and the spacecraft, which was initially expected to be ready for crewed flights by 2017, has seen its timeline pushed back due to management problems and engineering failures. One of the first major issues arose during a test flight in December 2019. The Starliner successfully launched on an Atlas V rocket, but during its mission to dock with the ISS, carrying only cargo and a crash test dummy named Rosie, things began to go awry. About 15 minutes after launch, the spacecraft separated from the rocket and prepared to fire its engines to head towards the ISS. However, when it attempted to execute this maneuver, the engines failed to ignite. Boeing quickly regained control and successfully fired the engines, achieving a stable orbit. The immediate crisis was averted, but the incident raised questions about what went wrong. Following this, NASA and Boeing officials held a press conference, where former NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine explained that a timing error had caused the problem. The Starliner's internal clock had been misaligned, leading the spacecraft to believe it was farther along in its mission than it actually was. This mistake caused a series of incorrect maneuvers that wasted fuel and jeopardized the mission. Despite the efforts to remain optimistic, the disappointment was clear. The team had invested years of meticulous planning, only to see the mission falter due to a seemingly small error. This incident led the teams to reassess their strategy and address these major issues before attempting another launch. It's surprising how a minor glitch can derail a billion-dollar spacecraft, underscoring how crucial every detail is in space travel. The troubles for the Starliner continued. After the initial test flight mishap, Boeing announced that another unmanned test flight would be needed before the Starliner could be deemed safe for carrying astronauts. In response, NASA initiated a 7-month investigation, which uncovered several issues that Boeing needed to address. During this time, SpaceX was making steady progress, completing crewed tests that Boeing had yet to start. When engineers began preparing for another uncrewed test, they discovered over 1,000 corroded valves in the propulsion system, which required extensive repairs and testing. This delayed the launch once again, and the flight was finally scheduled for May 2022. In May 2022, the Starliner launched for its second spaceflight. This time, it successfully reached the ISS and returned without any significant problems, offering a glimmer of hope that Boeing had finally overcome its issues. The successful test flight cleared the way for NASA to announce plans for the Starliner's first crewed flight. Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams, both seasoned astronauts, were selected for the mission. Wilmore had previously flown combat missions in the Gulf War, and he had spent significant time aboard the ISS. Williams had also made history as the first woman to serve as a test pilot for a new spacecraft, and she had previously spent time on the ISS. Both astronauts brought a wealth of experience and confidence to the Starliner mission. Despite the optimism surrounding the astronauts, the Starliner continued to face challenges. The hardware issues that had plagued the spacecraft did not vanish, and new problems emerged. In 2023, additional complications included the need for another drop test on a new parachute system and the discovery that nearly a mile of flammable tape had been used to insulate the spacecraft's wiring, requiring a full replacement. By the spring of 2024, Boeing appeared to have addressed most of these issues, and it seemed that the Starliner program was on track for success. However, the beginning of 2024 brought a new set of crises for Boeing. In January, a 737 MAX experienced a serious incident when a wall blew out during a flight, injuring passengers. Not long after, a Boeing 747 in Miami was seen with flames erupting from its engine. In March, a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner experienced an engine failure during a flight from Australia to New Zealand, injuring 50 people. To make matters worse, a whistleblower, John Barnett, was found dead under suspicious circumstances while in the middle of a lawsuit against Boeing. These incidents only added to Boeing's mounting problems, leading CEO Dave Calhoun to announce he would resign by the end of the year. The company, desperate for a win, was hoping the upcoming Starliner launch would offer a chance for redemption. Boeing had invested over $1 billion into the Starliner program, and success was critical. In May 2024, the crew flight test was scheduled, and preparations were in place. However, during the countdown on May 6th, engineers found an issue with the oxygen relief valve on the rocket, forcing a launch cancellation. A new launch date was set for May 21st, but further delays followed. NASA engineers discovered a helium leak in one of the spacecraft's thrusters, causing another setback. Despite these challenges, the crew test was finally cleared for June 1, 2024. On June 5, after 2 failed attempts, the Starliner successfully launched, carrying Wilmore and Williams. The astronauts were to spend about 8 days in orbit, with their return scheduled for June 14. Unfortunately, the mission was not without further complications. Shortly after launch, helium leaks resurfaced, and 4 additional leaks were detected. As the spacecraft approached the ISS, a thruster failure nearly prevented docking. This close call raised serious concerns about the spacecraft's readiness for safe astronaut return. What was initially an 8-day mission was extended to 9 days, with the return date pushed back to June 22, 2024. As the mission continued, questions about the Starliner's safety and the prolonged stay aboard the ISS emerged. Despite Boeing's assurance that they had fixed the issues, NASA remained cautious. Not fully convinced of the spacecraft's readiness, NASA decided to have SpaceX bring the astronauts back instead. This decision meant that the astronauts would stay aboard the ISS until February 2025, nearly 2 months after the Starliner had docked. NASA emphasized its commitment to safety, which was a significant blow to Boeing's reputation. Once considered a reliable space travel giant, Boeing was now struggling to bring astronauts back home without outside assistance, despite investing billions into the Starliner program. This reality was particularly difficult for the company to accept. As the situation continued to unfold, Boeing's once stellar reputation began to erode. The company's historical role as a key player in U.S. space exploration seemed to be slipping away, with each delay and technical issue further tarnishing its image. For a company that had been synonymous with reliable space technology, these setbacks were particularly difficult to overcome. The fact that Boeing, after spending billions on the Starliner program, was unable to complete a successful crewed mission without relying on SpaceX's Crew Dragon was a harsh blow to its credibility. NASA's decision to turn to SpaceX instead of Boeing to ensure the astronauts' safe return made it clear just how much trust had been lost in Boeing's spacecraft. This series of events highlighted the vast gap between SpaceX's growing success and Boeing's persistent struggles. SpaceX, under Musk's leadership, continued to demonstrate its capability in launching and returning astronauts safely, proving itself as a dominant force in the space industry. SpaceX's reliable track record had earned it both NASA's and the global space community's trust, while Boeing seemed to be grappling with one issue after another. As SpaceX surged forward, Boeing's troubles piled up, leaving many to question whether Boeing could ever regain its former position in the space sector. In the broader context of space exploration, the ongoing drama between Boeing and SpaceX signaled a larger shift in the industry. Musk's ambitions for SpaceX have always been clear: to reduce space transportation costs and ultimately make space travel more accessible. However, SpaceX's growing dominance also put pressure on other aerospace companies, including Boeing, which had been considered one of the leading aerospace giants for decades. Boeing's repeated failures with the Starliner raised doubts about its ability to stay competitive in this rapidly changing market. Meanwhile, SpaceX's successes were not without their own challenges, but the company's consistent ability to innovate, learn from mistakes, and deliver results on time and within budget had positioned it as the go-to partner for NASA and other commercial clients. While the space industry had always been an area of fierce competition, the gap between SpaceX's current success and Boeing's ongoing issues had become more and more apparent. At the same time, the global space community had come to rely more heavily on private companies, such as SpaceX, to carry out missions once reserved for government-run space agencies. The success of private companies in space exploration had opened up new possibilities for the future, but it also posed questions about the sustainability of traditional aerospace companies like Boeing. Would Boeing be able to adapt to the new realities of the space industry, or would it continue to fall behind? This question remains unanswered as the drama surrounding the Starliner and Boeing's future in space continues to unfold. In the months following the decision to rely on SpaceX for the astronauts' return, the stakes only grew higher. Boeing's public image continued to suffer, and the company faced intense scrutiny from both the public and industry experts. Critics argued that Boeing's failures were not just a series of isolated incidents but part of a larger trend of mismanagement and technical shortcomings. Many questioned whether Boeing could still be trusted to deliver on future space projects, particularly given the immense costs involved in developing and launching spacecraft. Despite the mounting pressure, Boeing remained committed to resolving the issues with the Starliner. The company announced that it would continue to work on making the spacecraft safe for crewed missions and would address all of the technical challenges that had previously plagued the program. Boeing officials expressed confidence that the Starliner would eventually meet NASA's standards, but given the length of time and the number of delays, many wondered if this confidence was misplaced.